Are you ready to improve your health without the unrealistic BS? You're tuning in to Healthy Not Hungry, the podcast that believes that health begins in your mind. I'm your host, clinical nutritionist, PT, and mental health enthusiast Rach, and I'm so excited to have you join me. Hello and welcome to another episode of Healthy Not Hungry. I'm your host Rach. Thank you so much for joining us today. So today we are joined by Katie. Katie is a personal trainer, self-development and breathwork coach dedicated to helping women transform their lives through health, fitness and mindset. She's a single mum to a beautiful 4-year-old girl, and that is her reason why. She is the reason that Katie chooses to show up every day and has been operating a personal training business for close to 10 years now. Thank you so much for joining us today, Katie.
Hello, Rach. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yay, me too. So I've obviously given a little bit of a bio and glimpse of who you are, but for everyone listening, can you tell us a little bit more about you from, I guess, your perspective?
For sure. So my name is Katie, and as you said, I am a single mum to a beautiful girl, Isla. She's actually going on 5 now in August, and she has completely changed my world, so she definitely is the reason for everything that I do today. But I am the oldest in my family, so I have a younger brother and sister, and growing up, I was always looking after my brother and sister and always very, I guess, independent and moving a lot, playing lots of sports, but I just never felt like I was fitting in. And that kind of progressed through to primary school and high school, and I felt like I was always competing with friends and trying to keep up and just not feeling good within my own skin. And so that kind of led me on a journey to have really low self-confidence and low self-worth. And that's when I kind of tackled the whole health and fitness industry approach. And so we're going on 10 years now as a personal trainer, and I've had a women's personal training business for the past 10 years. And I've taken a different approach, so more of like a holistic approach. So instead of, showing up just to lose weight or focus on what you're eating, it's about feeling good in your own skin and showing up for purely yourself, no one else, and building that self-confidence and prioritizing yourself. And so I've done that over the last 10 years. But yeah, all through school, I did lots of sport. So we did lots of touch football, athletics, did water skiing with family. All through high school, was still doing sports, and then I started going to the gym when I was in high school as well, and that's where my passion kind of come in for the gym, and that led me onto my personal training journey. But then once I became a mum, I very shortly then became a single mum, and that's kind of when I used to say that my world was turned upside down, but it was turned upside down for the better, and I feel like I have come out of that a completely different person, and that's my drive and passion for what I do today.
Thank you for sharing that. And as most people who've listened long enough now know, that very similar situation, I became a single mum very early on in motherhood, and it is, I agree, like I think sometimes you can look at it like, yes, it was really tough, but you got through it, and where it's put you now is so great, especially for you and your little built-in best friend. It's like,
Yeah.
It's so worth it, but it's tough in the moment when it's crumbling, that's for sure.
Yeah, it is 100%. And I think it's the tough times. It's hard to notice in the tough times, but it's the tough times where we really grow. And I think we're able to peel away the layers and find out who we truly are and what our passion and our purpose is. And I think that's what really pushes us forward to be the best version of ourselves.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more. So when it comes to the fitness industry, as you mentioned, like you have a more holistic approach of looking at the inside and how it makes you feel. And it's not just about getting skinny or, hitting an aesthetic goal as such. But do you think when you first became a PT, did you have that opinion, or do you think that that's grown over time? Because I know for myself, when I first started as a PT, I was all about getting, that best bikini body, and that was a prime goal. And then it took years for me to grow into myself before I was like, hang on a minute, this is really not the sole purpose here. But I'd love to know your journey on that.
I was straight off the bat, straight into women's only fitness, which I've stuck with over the past 10 years. And it was straight away like, I want them all to feel good enough within their own skin. I want them to know that not one size fits all. They don't have to look a certain way or be a certain way. There is health and fitness is not just one answer or one kind of, one kind of look. And so I guess that stemmed from me growing up as a child thinking that I had to have the bikini body and I had to have the six pack and I had to have the flat tummies. So throughout primary school, I had close best friends that were very athletic and they were very high up. They were in state and nationals, and they were also very smart, and they were getting, A grades, and they were getting school captain and this and that. And I just couldn't meet those standards. And so I was surrounding myself with people that were up here, and I felt like I was always down here, and I was always trying to chase that. But what stuck out for me most as a child was my body, and I was never happy in my body. And that stemmed right through until high school. And it wasn't until then I probably got into the gym myself and was doing just my own training on my own terms, where I was like, I'm really strong, in this area or this lift. And so the confidence started to kick in there. And I was like, well, hang on, I don't need to be like person A or person B. Like, I've stepped into this gym floor today and I've shown up, on my own 2 feet, and I feel confident. I feel really good in myself. And so I took that away in the business, and I was like, I don't want anyone to doubt themselves. Like, I want them to confidently and strongly stand on their own 2 feet and be happy with who they are today. So that's where I kicked off straight away. It was women's boot camp, and we were out in bindi patches and footy fields and then hot, sweaty halls, and it was women's only, and there was nothing else going in my area like that. It was, your intimidating gyms where there's male and female, and I didn't want that. I wanted it to be unique and I wanted it to be special and different. So no, straight away it was women's fitness only. And inside of those boot camps, it was also running programs like, I think my first one was actually called Better Yourself program. And it was focused again on like mental and emotional health and feeling good in your own skin, rather than just giving them a fat loss diet or getting them to lose X amount of weight. So it was purely around, what they looked like and feeling good in their own skin straight away. And I've stuck with that through and through over the 10 years.
That's awesome. That's really cool that you were able to start with that solid foundation and, I guess values and ethics for yourself. Because as I said to you just then, like, it was something that I grew into when I realized it on and off, but the big turning point was during my pregnancy. I put on like 30 kilograms. And after I had my daughter, I lost that within 6 months, and actually ended up losing more and becoming smaller than I was pre-child.
Yeah.
And it took me to get probably the fittest I'd ever been in my life, to realize that I still wasn't happy with myself. It didn't bring confidence. It didn't bring happiness. It didn't bring joy. And it took me to get to that point myself. And it was a really hard lesson before I think I truly got that essence of what was important and showing up to training and, why we put into ourselves. And so it's so cool that you had figured that out and could put that straight into your business.
Yeah, and that's so funny because I was the same when I fell pregnant. I gained again literally 30 kilos and I hated it. And then I hated it because I hated pregnancy, because I hated the way my body looked. And how selfish does that sound? Like, you're growing a child, Katie, but I hated it. It wasn't for me. And it was simply because I wasn't okay with how my body looked and how I felt. And that stemmed from childhood. That stemmed, even though it's pregnancy and I'm literally about to birth my own child, I still was so unhappy in my skin, and I swore I wouldn't be pregnant again. And so that's when, like, now that breaks my heart. I've done a lot of healing and growing since then, and I think that I don't, there is so many women out there falling pregnant and then still not being happy in their own skin. Like, I feel like we live this life where no one's truly happy with themselves, but we're always trying to reach a new target. And that target, like, as you said, and I was the same, I then lost so much weight once I had my daughter. I was actually like smaller, skinnier, the scales were lower than they'd ever been before. And I was still so messed up. I was still like, I hate this. This is not it. But I was like, I actually thought once I hit this number on the scales, I would be happy. And I wasn't. I was like 10 kilos below what I was before I had my daughter, and I was still not happy. And that's what I mean. There's always like a new target. So, okay, Katie reached that target. not deliberately. I was literally just so tired and stressed, and my relationship was breaking down, and I was on pretty much becoming a single mum, and there was COVID, etc. But then I hit that figure, and I always thought that figure on the scales, that would be it. That would be my happiness. That's it. We're just going to get there and we'll be sweet. And no, I was so sick. I was so stressed. I was so unhappy. And so that's when I realized something's got to change. And especially then with my daughter, I don't want her to ever grow up and, walk the path that I've walked. Like, I want her to feel confident in her own skin. So that was my turning point for me. I was like, something's got to change. We have to come first.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's so hard because how we've described how we felt, so many women feel that way during pregnancy, even before pregnancy, after pregnancy. Like, I know so many mums at school, don't get me wrong, it's like anything. There's always the group who are looking after themselves and done the work and feel really good. But there is such a big group of women who feel so unhappy and think if they hit this magic number, they'll get there. But that magic number isn't that magic because you'll just pick a new one. And I think it's really changing the culture of like needing to pour into ourselves and show up for ourselves and realize that that's not selfish, that's not neglectful against your kids or your partner or whoever else it may be. But we need to pour into ourselves and look after ourselves and put ourselves first.
Yeah, because like honestly, how many mums out there are falling pregnant and not being happy with what their body is nurturing and growing a child, and they're feeling so insecure. But then the second we're having bub, it's like, okay, quick, I need to reach out to a PT or a trainer and I need to shred this weight. And it's like, your body just birthed a child. But that was me. I was like, okay, like I need to get rid of this mum tum, and it's just, we're always trying to reach a target. Like, hello, you just birthed a child. Like, be grateful, like, thank yourself, be grateful for that. But we're not, we're just so quick to criticize ourselves and jump into being better. But then when we get better, we're still not happy with where we're at. So that's something needs to happen there.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's a very hard place. And I think too, like we were discussing before we jumped on this, but like, there's so much pressure these days, particularly as a woman, and if you're a single mum, or even if not, where you're trying to wear all the hats, you're trying to live in this masculine energy and like be the mum, be the provider, be the boss, do all the things. And a lot of the time when people are doing that, ourselves really can come last, and we're not necessarily nurturing or what we are doing for ourselves because we're so used to projecting that have to get stuff done. We're treating our bodies the same. It's becoming this repetitive to-do list of you have to do this, and it's not really intentional or thinking about what's best for yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And I find that so much, and I'm still juggling with that and working through that myself is, for the past, my daughter's nearly 5, so I became a single mum when she was 10 months old. So, the majority of the 5 years, it's been her and I, and it's just her and I under the one roof. And then, not only am I a single mum, I'm then a business owner. And, I have a beautiful team of clients, but then, you're waking up and you're showing up, you're doing the breakfast, you're doing the school run, and then it's boom, you're straight into business mode and you're face to face with clients, you're a coach and you're a mentor, and then you're coming home and it's okay, we've got to unpack the dishwasher and you're going into house chores, and it's just like having a million tabs open and just going from one thing to the next. And when you're in that overdrive and so overstimulated, if you can't come home to yourself, I think that's when it's easy to then be burnt out and not stop. Because once we go, it's easy to keep going and not stop. But if we are wary of that, or I like to say, if you can come home to yourself, that's when you can pull yourself up and go, my cup is empty today. I have poured in so many different types of glasses today, my daughter being one, business the other, house, etc. Where, like, I need to fill my own cup now. Like, we've been in overdrive. Like, where's my time? Where's me? And so I think, there's really important things that come into play there. So a big thing for me is boundaries. And I always used to think boundaries is just in relationships, like, with your partner or family and friends, but it's boundaries in whole, in everything. And it's being able to, step away from people pleasing. It's being able to say no. and it's being able to put yourself first. So I think boundaries is a really, really big thing for self-care and prioritizing yourself and giving back to yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Boundaries is huge. And I think something that kind of goes into that is accepting, like, having that worthiness of yourself and that value of yourself. Because I
Yeah.
think when you value yourself and your time, you can set boundaries better. It's a bit easier to say no. I mean, if you are a people pleaser type, I hear you. It's really hard to set those boundaries and say no sometimes. But when you can see the reason as to why you're doing that, because it makes it a bit easier. Like I once heard this saying, for everything you say yes to, you're saying no to something else. So the person who said
Yeah.
it at the time was relaying to their daughter. So they were saying for every extra work thing that they say yes to please someone else, even if they don't want to, she's like, I'm saying no to that time with my daughter. And when I started thinking of the exchange like that, I was like, oh my God, if I'm saying yes to something, even though I don't want to do it, I'm saying no to Holly. And I don't
Yeah.
want to say no to Holly on that, or I'm saying no to myself, or something that I value that's very important. And so I think, yeah, you're right. Like boundaries is huge, but also having the worth behind those boundaries and understanding, that by having those boundaries, you're valuing what you value.
Yeah, and you've got to love yourself. Having boundaries and following through with those boundaries, it's about loving yourself first. And you don't just wake up and go, "Today I'm going to love myself." Like it's a work in progress, but you're so right. Like for so many years, we're looking at primary school and high school. Katie was never confident in her own skin, and that caused a lot of challenges and a lot of damage along the way. But then I was in a long-term relationship with my daughter's father for 6 years, and within that time frame, because I stepped into that relationship with no confidence coming out of primary school and high school, I can see now how much of an impact that then had on that relationship. So instead of showing up for myself inside that relationship, I showed up for someone else, and I allowed them to override my boundaries, and I gave chances on those boundaries. And I say now to clients, if you have a boundary and you let someone walk over that, or you give them another chance, a second or a third chance, that's no longer a boundary. A boundary is you standing firm in your own 2 feet and saying, no, like this is how it is. It could be, I love you, I respect you, and I appreciate you, but I need to do this for me, and that's a no from me. And that's okay. It doesn't have to be a nasty outcome. But I found within that relationship, I then spent a lot of time people pleasing and showing up for someone else and not showing up for myself. And it wasn't until I literally just got completely sat on my ass where I was forced to show up for myself, because everything was breaking down and I was losing in all aspects of life. And I think that's the reality of it. You will know if you need to make changes, because the universe and your mind and your body will prove to you that, hey, like we're lacking some love here. Like you're putting us last, and it gets thrown back in your face. So yeah, it's really important to be wary of where you are. And I think like just little things, like yesterday I had a message and someone had asked if I could do something, and it was in, business wise. And I couldn't help them out in that instance. And then they write back and say, no worries, thanks. And then Katie starts writing and going, I'm so sorry. And then I start explaining myself why I can't help them out. And they haven't even asked. They've literally just said, okay, thanks for your response. But then Katie goes straight into people pleasing mode. And I literally typed out a message of like, I'm so sorry, I couldn't help out. This is why, X, Y, Z. And I was like, hang on a minute. I'm wasting so much energy here. I don't need to prove myself. I've respectfully declined. I can't help out because literally I'm growing my business. Like I'm busy doing really important things, and I don't need to be sorry, and I don't need to explain myself. And so that's growth. So I'm backspacing that message, and that message didn't get sent. So it's little things like that.
I know exactly what you mean because I do the same thing, but it's realizing you don't have to defend or explain yourself for
Yeah.
setting boundaries.
Yeah.
Most of the time too, I think most people, if they're respectful enough, they just take it as like that person was like, okay, thanks, no worries. And they don't think twice about it. And it's like then in our head, we're like, oh, but they hate me. They think I'm slack or whatever. And it's like learning to be like, well, no, it's okay. Like they just respect that you're a human and you have other stuff going on. And it's giving yourself that grace too and being like, I'm not up for investigation here. Like, I don't have to always go above and beyond and over the top to either do something or explain why I'm not doing it.
Exactly. And I think that's the hard reality of it. And I think that I had to learn that the hard way because I have such a big heart and I love so deeply, and it's the harsh reality. Having boundaries is that you are going to piss people off and people are not going to be happy about those boundaries. And some people might even walk away. So the harsh reality is learning that those people are not meant to be in your life. No matter how much you adore them, how long they've been involved in your life for XYZ, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. If they're not respecting your boundary, you shouldn't be surrounding yourself with those kind of people. And so sometimes your circle shrinks, but that's okay. But it's hard. It's hard to love people and see them walk away, or you've got to let them go because they're no longer aligning with your vision and your purpose. And you can't grow as a person when you have so many things or so many people dragging you down along the way. It's about letting it be and just letting it go so that you can step into that higher version of yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And it can feel really yucky and uncomfortable. But I think, we grow from discomfort. Like, it's important to realize if you're not feeling uncomfortable or challenged or like you're having to push yourself in some ways, you're probably not in a space where you are moving up and growing either. Sometimes you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable
Yeah,
in
that's
order
a
to
huge
get where
one.
you want to get.
Yeah, I think that's a huge one. I always say, to clients or family and friends, hard is your green light. And I've come to learn that. Whereas, being a single mum and then that was really hard. And then I was trying to run my PT business within COVID. So my own personal training studio got completely shut down and I was stuck at home with a 10-month-old baby. And I just remember crying and crying and crying and just feeling so defeated and upset. And I didn't have the experience and the knowledge and the growth then to be like, you know what? This does suck and your feelings are okay, but you're going to grow from this. Like, look at the strength and the resilience that's going to come from this. I wasn't in that position back then, whereas now I've been doing the work, still doing the work. Whereas when hard things come on or things don't go to plan, I can go, you know what? That's life. Like, life really sucks sometimes and this is not fair, but what's meant to be will be. And I've got the strength and resilience now to work through this. And if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, that's okay. We move forward and we try again.
Yeah, exactly. And that is a very hard thing to kind of work your head around. Like anything, it's a muscle, right? The more you work it, the easier it gets, the stronger it gets,
Yeah.
and the more you rely on it. But what I did want to ask is, do you have any tips for someone who is looking at finding ways to love themselves a little bit more or set those boundaries and change that mindset? What are your tips for that?
I think the biggest thing for me, and it's what I ask all of my clients, I say to them, if I asked you why you got out of bed today, what's your answer? And most of the time when you ask this question, it's like, well, I'm a mum. The kids had to be fed and they had to get to school today. That's why I got out of bed. I couldn't stay in bed because the kids needed me. Or it's, well, I got out of bed because I had to go to work today. I had to show up for my boss or I had to show up for my partner. Very rarely is anyone going, I showed up because I want to be a better person today, or I want to achieve this, or I want to do this for myself, or they're waking up and their reason to get out of bed is because they're doing or they're giving to other people and other things. So I think you need to get clear on who you are and what your why is. What is your why? Why do you get out of bed every day? And who are you? Who are you outside of a mum? Who are you outside of a business owner? Who are you outside of a wife? And they're really like, that seems like a simple question, but it's not. It's so brutally hard and you've got to be so honest with yourself. And you might not have the answer straight away, but it's working on that. Okay, I'm getting up today for the kids, but what else is happening today where I'm showing up for myself? Like, what is my purpose here today? So getting clear on what your why is. Why do you get out of bed every day? And who are you outside of the titles that you do hold? Because most of the time, no one knows. No one can answer that question. So I think that's really huge. Again, having having boundaries, but boundaries also come from knowing what your goals are. So I think once we're getting clear on, what our why is and how we're showing up for ourselves and why we're showing up for ourselves, breaking that down into goals. And that could be just little things like, it could be goals like I'm not doing overtime, or it could be, I'm going to commit to 2 walks on my own today where I'm listening to a podcast. I'm going to have my cup of tea outside today. I'm going to ensure I have 1 shower in me time today where there's no kids. It can be then bigger goals like I'm going to compete in a CrossFit competition, or I'm going to participate in XYZ. But it's then getting clear on your goals, and it's like having a formula for yourself so that when you're waking up each day, you know where you're going. You've got the steps to kind of move forward and keep you on track.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think like one to add to that is that I always like to add is pick goals that are based on your values.
Yeah.
What it is that you value and that you want to uphold and prioritize. And
exactly.
If you can base it on that. But that's great advice. Thank you so much for that. I love the why am I waking up? Because you had me questioning that too. And I'm like, I need to work on this a bit more. So thank you for that. That was very thought-provoking. Yeah. But thank you so much for joining us today, Katie. So for anyone listening, if they want to get in touch, what's the best way to find you?
Yeah, so you can find us on the socials at KFit Mind and Body. Otherwise, our podcast channel is called Just for You, Just for Me, which is now on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you for your time and your knowledge. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Well, that's all we have time for today, but thank you so much for tuning in and joining us once again. If you haven't already, please subscribe, like, and leave a review on your favorite podcast streaming site, or share with someone who you think could benefit from this episode. Don't forget to follow us on your favorite social media at Healthy Not Hungry or Healthy Not Hungry Podcast.